Hey guys, I'm Looseie. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing another retro review, taking a step back look on Aion in 2021. So without any further ado, let's just jump right in. Alright guys, so we're tweaking our system a little bit, and we're not necessarily going to score Aion today, but we are going to still jump in all the categories, and I'm just kind of going to go back on some of the best of, in a sense, of the moments and some of the better things that the game had to offer, because, well, you'll see. Alright, so let's just jump into PvE. So, other than the traditional trifecta that you have of tank, healer, and DPS, like in pretty much most games of this time, and almost every game of the genre, you have the 6-man dungeons, which is probably where the majority of the time you're going to be doing your content. And it does branch out from 12 up to 48 at one time. They did have raids that were that big, however, I don't think that really continues on other than in Siege. Crafting itself used to be important, but it's kind of been gutted to a point where I think Aether Forging is just about the only thing. All the other things have been pretty much eliminated in a sense. There's other way to get pretty much the most powerful things in the game when it comes to food or a buff, which scrolls have been eliminated. A lot of those things have been eliminated, so more pay-to-win mechanics, but we'll talk about that later. You know, and another thing is that the gear used to be hard to get back in the day. Meaning that not only was it time gated on content, you had to do things at a certain time, yada yada yada. Of course, you locked, you know, when you could go in and out of a dungeon, but the drops was also very low drop chance. So getting that extendable, you know, that first time they introduced that was awesome, you know, when you finally did get it. So that really made it feel weightier, you know, like you achieved something when you got the piece of gear. So, you know, that's pretty much gone too. As you'll see, if you're a new player, they just pretty much give you a starter set kind of, and you have to go from there, and you're initially thrown into the enhancement system, which is, it's a whole nother thing by itself. I can make a video just about that. But one of the things that I do have to say that was, they did actually do a good job was for the longest time, there were no auto grouping systems, meaning everything that you had to do, you either had to do it through a guild or you had to do it in the LFG looking for group kind of posting window, which was, you know, a group leader would post a message saying looking for a healer, DPS, such and such, whatever dungeon or whatever, you know, roles they're trying to fill for maybe a raid. And then you would whisper them and yada yada, and then you would get invited, and then you would go, and then y'all would start. So they still had that system. There was no summoning stones, you know, any kind of instant transmissions, or a system where you just click this and then it puts you in a queue, and then it was your turn, you just went. So it was very social. Aion, I think that was one of the things, especially when it came out, it was real social. Now keep in mind too, when it came out, LFGs and stuff like that wasn't invented yet as well. So would they have used it earlier than that? We don't know, but they kind of did start doing that in the first place anyway, but later on. So it was very guild oriented and team oriented. So if you wanted to be active, you had to be, you know, in an active guild, and you had to be a team player for the most part, because obviously you couldn't change your name at the time, and it was a live server type status, so you could taint your name. You guys know the deal about that. So it wasn't really a solo friendly game back in the day, like pretty much every MMO now. In fact, most of them can be done almost everything solo played. It's kind of unfortunate. Now, it wasn't alt friendly either in the PvE in that sense either, because experience used to be so hard to get. Now, with all that said, there wasn't really too much as far as innovation here when it came to PvE for this game. Nothing fresh, really, in my opinion. The flying gimmick mechanic from time to time, but that's truly about it. Did meet some really cool people and had some fun and made some really good memories and had some fun times, so I can't knock it for that. Like I said, the social aspect originally was really high, so if you wanted to play the game, you did have to be, you know, kind of social. So like you know, good and bad, but unfortunately where we are now. So I almost forgot to mention, guys, that there was a housing system, and I mean, there still is, and it's basically instance off between the two factions. There are a few houses around the maps, some of the maps, that are neutral, and the other faction can go to and just kind of hang out with their neutral zones. You can't attack anybody. It's not an extraordinary big housing system, but it allows you to do a little bit of customization. All right, now as far as visuals goes, I have to be completely honest here. I can't really beat around the bush, even though I did spend a lot of time and money playing this game over the course of my time playing it. When it comes to visuals, there's no way of saying it's always been lackluster. I mean, it always has been, and the performance has just been absolute shit since the beginning, and that has never changed, ever. No matter what rig you on, no matter what kind of space computer you have from Venus, you're still gonna run this game like dog shit in the scenarios when you don't want it to run bad, like in PvP, especially Siege. It's horrible, which one of the things that makes Siege absolutely just bonkers. Keep in mind, this thing was made in Cry 1.0 engine, so, and they haven't really done much. The only other game that was made in 1.0 was the first Far Cry, which was the engine that it was not even really designed for. It was designed for more of a demo. So you can do all your research on that if you want to. I don't need to go any further than that. However, one thing they did have going for them at one point were the character models. They did look really nice. They still do kind of look nice from time to time when you get some of the really shiny cash shop shit. But other than that, even that has fallen behind. And one of the main issues I've always had with this game, especially manning a Templar, was the rubber banding. This was the first time where I've actually encountered playing a video game, an MMO online game, where rubber banding was, instead of once in a blue moon, it became almost expected. You almost knew when it was going to happen, or you were like, I'm about to get rubber banded, and sure enough, and it would happen. And it's the worst thing. They've never fixed it, and they never will be. So I don't need to go any further than that. I'm gonna get some footage of that you guys will see on the screen. Another thing, very small linear maps. There's almost zero actual flight. The Abyss was the only place where you could actually fly, and that's even been removed from the game now. So there's very little small patches where you can fly at, and it's always been a gimmick. The flight's always been a gimmick. People know that flight combat has always been relatively so there was never any true push other than the original, introduction of it in the game. They never tried to refine it or anything, just like many other things. So let's not get started there. And then most of the older zones that a lot of you guys might remember from 2008, 2010, all those are gone now. Or if the ones that are still there, same name, have been completely revamped visually, but really not much. They haven't really been changed much. You got to keep in mind that, you know, it's on that 12-year-old client, so you're still going to have this huge download for no reason, for basically, you know, in essence, what could be summed up in like 15 maps, something like that. Don't quote me on the exact number. You know, some of the sound effects are still great, though. Like when you crit with a bow, pow, 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 on a ranger, or with that great sword. So every once in a while you still get some shining little moments. Some of the visual effects are actually pretty legit, but for the most part, when it comes visual quality, it's gonna be an eyesore, especially in 2021. Alright, so the cash shop. Now, I can't tell you the exact date, don't quote me on this, but it was around sometime when 3.0 came out, when the game went free to play and that mono was introduced. And then at that moment, NCSoft just went balls deep into the cash shop. They held nothing back. At one point, they even kind of changed the enhancement system to fully utilize the RNG of your credit card. And the only way I can explain this is an example of, I know some of you guys might remember the time at GameStop and some places, and I think it was only GameStop though, where they were offering a $20 or whatever NCSoft, you know, coin card, but when you bought it, there was an Omega enchantment stone on the back of it, or maybe two. I don't quote me. I don't know how many. It might have been one or two, or maybe 3 or 4, depending on how big of a card you bought, right? And what you did is you got, you know, you bought it there, boom, you bring it home. Now you have the in-game currency to get pretty much whatever you want, or, you know, pay to win. But you also get these extra bonus Omega enchantment stones that at the time were almost 100% guaranteed to succeed, like at plus 12 and higher. You know, when going to 15 and 16 in some cases, when they just introduced that was, oh man, like I said, they went balls deep from the beginning. So you add all that stuff in. And not only was that with that when the cash shop, but they also started adding all these other things. And some of these future systems that I was talking about earlier, like the pets and whatnot, they're very, how can I word this, cash out friendly, meaning that you can, if you want to get all these levels of power without paying in this game, you're going to have to basically dedicate, for most people, you're going to have to dedicate an amount of time equivalent to, say, like a full-time 40-hour work week job at playing the game. Now, if you get lucky and your RNG just acts, falls your way, maybe a little bit less, and you'll have a less harder time. But you got to understand that doesn't happen for a lot of people. So don't think that you'll be the exception. I mean, it's a very small percentage of people that completely play games for free to play and just have all the RNG fall in their way. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen too often, so keep that in mind. And another thing you have to keep in mind is that a lot of the mechanical issues from the game, they've decided to just bypass that and sell you a developed a development fix, like the instant teleports, for instance. Well, you don't like running around the map and glitching all over the place. Well, you can teleport, and then you can get premium and teleport with no cooldowns. Yeah, don't get me started with the Blade and Soul type teleporting system. Oh, Blade and Soul is the same company, if you guys didn't know. So yeah, keep that in mind. And one of the main things I wanted to talk about when it comes to the cash shop is that NCSoft is definitely on the rise for mobile. As you can see on the screen here, I'm putting up a nice little pretty graph that they've made. I've left a link in the description. You guys can go read their entire report for the whole fiscal year for like the past 10 years if you want to. Oh, I don't know if it goes back that long, but this was 19 and 20, so you can probably go back quite a good, at least 15, 14, something like that. Anyway, they show that you can see the majority of where their money is starting to come from, and even say that in their report that they're prioritizing the mobile. Like, that's their thing now. So hence, the Aion Classic, which we haven't got to that just yet, but I'll touch on that at the end of the video, trying to milk everything for they possibly can. So unfortunately, that's where it is. With the Aion Classic, they're going to be trying to milk the new fresh start craze, which seems to start to sweep the industry right now. And all this classic and relaunching of my game 10 and 12 years ago, it's nothing but a fresh start. It's nothing but a fresh start server, because the current game, for the most part, players think sucks. So you're trying to roll it back to a time where people didn't think it sucked. And, like, that's whatever. That's a whole nother video all by itself. The players are not put first. I'll just simply say that. So in all practical senses, right now, it has been pay to win since the free model has come into play. So don't expect anything different unless you have an absorbent amount of time to drop into it, or you get extremely lucky when it comes to these plus 16 and higher rolls. When you truly want to get in some of the competitive areas of the game and get those high socketing stones and without spending a lot of money. So that's just the truth. Alright, now one of the things that this game did have going for it was the PvP. Because it had a good tab target system, the combat, when it wasn't rubber banding on flat surfaces and there wasn't too many people, was really good. It did feel good. There was a balance for the most part at the beginning of the game. I think, the performance, again, is what just destroys almost every single thing about this game. And it definitely destroyed it here. Again, in smaller 1v1 duels, maybe outside of a town or something, or when you're in Pernin, you could easily get some good frame rates and have a great matchup, something like that. But once you got to the bigger battles, especially the sieges, don't listen to anyone telling you that they are running 60 plus frames a second in this game at a siege with characters on. Don't let anyone lie to you. Tell them to live stream it right now. And if they can't, that's because they're lying. Someone who can run a PvP siege at 60 frames a second should also have all the equipment to live stream. Okay, you must have something from fucking Pluto, Mars, another galaxy to run this game with max settings, all players shown at a siege at 60 frames steady. I'd love to see it. Let me not, anyway, that's part of my next jump into is the faction versus faction siege battles. Made good, performance, the good idea, performance killed it. And once the balance was lost with the characters, my personal interpretation of this was the Song Weaver. When she was introduced, she did everything. She healed, she did range damage, she did melee damage, she had a shield, she had single target, huge single target damage, huge AoE damage, huge single target healing, huge AoE healing, wonderful ultimates, fear immunity, stun. I mean, look, the list goes on. Can break out, can teleport, can do a lot of instant casts. It was an extremely overpowered kind of class when she first came out. They never really changed much. They have introduced new ones. So I just think they kind of, you know, gave up on balance a long time ago. When it comes to PvP, you can also see, I'll show it on the screen. Here's some of the old items from level 30, 40, 50 in the Abyss when you had to really grind. Now I can't do anything with them. Can't sell them. Oh, I take that back. I can buy a cash shop Abyss extraction tool and get like 50 Abyss points out of them, which is maybe more than 50, but it's absolutely useless. So the point is, they didn't even take the time to take gear out of the game that used to be in the game. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. You can't get it anymore. It was never there. You know, I mean, it hasn't been there for years, and I still have all this crap in all of my inventories. So there you go. You know, in my opinion, the golden years for this game was Catalan, man. Was the Catalan PvP with the hot plates. Oh, man, it used to go down, bro, especially on the Templar. Let one of y'all step off the hot plate. It was like, over with. You are getting massacred. Vice versa. I know if I was doing that, people would do it the same to me, but I'm just saying, those were the only safe zones on the map, were these little small hot plates. So you knew when your frames started dropping that, oh crap, there's a hot plate battle around. PvP, you know, PvP, time to suit up, you know, get some potions, get your scrolls going, get your foods going, get your wines going, you know, get everything pop, baby. Let's do this. Get a jelly going if you got it, you know, let's go, right? Because I know PvP is around the corner, and there was nothing you could do if you weren't on a hot plate. There's no escape. You know, people can, pretty much everyone can catch anyone. It was kind of how it was to an extent. So you know, so there was still some really fun moments. And then, you know, the gear at that moment was just, that was like kind of on the teetering. They were on the teetering moment of when classes and everything and gear and all that really became, you know, more, you know, the game became less skill based and it became more just kind of pure number based. So at that moment, it doesn't really, it's not too fun, especially when the numbers, player numbers are dwindling and then outnumbering on one side, vice versa. And one thing I just have to say is the flight PvP was always cancer. So there's just nothing to get away from that, because they never tried to fix the system. It was always like that. You know, were there some fun times in PvP? Oh, hell yeah. You know, was I able sometimes to get some Siege actual like PvP in instead of it just being one clusterfuck versus the other clusterfuck? Yeah. Was the, you know, doing the 6v6 PvX time-gated crap, you know, that has now become just basically a train race, which, if you don't understand what that concept is it's when you pull mobs, you just run past them and they aggro onto you, and then they don't leave you. They never de-aggro, right? Old school, WoW used to do this to their mobs, and some old school games still do this, where once you aggro a mob, it's never going to reset. You either kill it or it kills you, or you leave the map or something. You know, you log off, and then the mob will finally reset. Well, in the 6v6 PvX dungeon, or PvP dungeon, whatever you want to call it, one team now, basically that's most of what you're going to see is one guy's going to run ahead and pull the first mob and just keep pulling all of them and just keep running, and he's going to take all 30, 40, 50 of them to the other team's side, and in most cases the other team brought him too. So now there's like 100 mobs that met in the middle, your frame rates went to crap, and you're all going to die. All 12 of y'all are going to die, and the mobs are just going to be loitered across the hallway for forever, and it's like, well, time to AFK, and now you got to wait another 40 minutes for this crap to end. And that's how pretty much every PvP thing is when it comes to instance play. So now let's jump into everybody's favorite part, the grind. Like any, you know, good Korean game, you're going to have huge amounts of grind, and this was one of the ones that really started it. As you can tell, I'm so excited to talk about this, but I'm not. This game from launch, even when it was pay to win, which whatever, however you want to define that, when it was subscription based, it had been grindy from the beginning. It had always been grindy. Now, it wasn't to the point where it was unnecessary. Okay, it wasn't to the point where it'd make you want to. Okay, it wasn't as bad as it is currently. Let's in some of the ways currently now. The grind has changed. Instead of farming dungeons and mobs and doing social aspects grindy, you're just grinding these extra systems out there they've added that it's really fluffed the game. So, anyway, the enhancing system in itself is its own grind. They could just make a standalone game of enhancing. Black Desert could also probably do that. They could make a standalone game of enhancing. It's already minigame in that game. I feel like it's a little worse here. And keep in mind, a long time ago, you know, 6-7 years ago, gear used to break and blow up. There was no downgrading. You'd be lucky if it downgraded. Most of the time it blew up. You know, welcome back to, you know, Arcade 1.0, right? Oh man, let me not get started on that one. Not yet. Anyway, so not only do you have the gear that you have to do it, you have your gear, stigmas, pets. They've added all these extra fluff systems to make you feel stronger and get stronger, and the RNG, and you have to constantly fight this enhancement system up battle, and it's just so unnecessary. It takes away from what the game should be. It should be a combat game. I shouldn't again, there's no point in talking about all that. Abyss points used to be something that you had to grind out for forever, and that's what gave you your PvP rank. Now that system has been completely eliminated because people used to hack, and not hack, but they figured out a cheat in one of the places they brought in years ago, and people just started destroying the system and getting millions and millions of Abyss points in a month and shooting up to 5-star in general. And you know how people are going to do if there's an exploit, people are going to break it. And so eventually their answer was just to get rid of that system all completely and introduce a new system called GP that you have to go to sieges to get. And once you get a certain rank, you actually lose GP by not going to sieges. Again, sieges time gated. So bam, another strike when it comes to that. The time gating, they loved it with this game, and they keep with it. They just like, screw it, we're going to keep on. So like I said, the Abyss points used to matter. They give it out to like candy now. GP is what gives you your ranking, which is relatively useless unless you're 5-star officer or higher. 5-star officer or higher, you can actually do a transformation and become about 10 times stronger than your normal character. Yeah, that's a thing. And when you're in sieges, you'll see that sometimes you won't. People just get salty in transformation and go morals, who knows. So not only that, but they added, you know, the auto hunting. So along with all those other new systems, they added this auto hunting crap, so they're making it more mobile. And if you don't believe me, when you get to the cash shop section, that's, you know, where NCSoft is making the majority of their money is mobile. So of course they're going to try to turn this and implement some of those systems that have been working in the mobile market. This is not a mobile game. This is a PC game. It's been a PC game since 2008. Anyway, and the only good aspect of the way that some of the things have changed is that it is a more alt-friendly experience right now, meaning you can get more characters to max level and roughly the same starting base than you could before, because the experience is a lot easier to get now. So they really did eliminate the level grind aspect of it, but that's irrelevant when the whole second part of the game, once you hit max level, is getting your dumbass stigmas and getting the dumbass gear. You know, enchanting them. Let me definitely reiterate that. So grind, you're looking at, if you don't like grind, you would have never liked this game, ever. Like, there was no time in history where you liked it. If you can't stand grinding, you would have never liked this game. Alright guys, now before we end the video, I know I said I was going to update you on Aion Classic, so here's the latest info. So far, all we really know is that KR Korea started with 1.5. So we don't know when NA and EU are going to get it. They haven't given us a definitive date yet. But just keep in mind that it's going to be on the Cry 1.0 engine, the kind of game that they're going to be fresh starting. So just keep that in mind. I don't know. This could be a hit. We'll see. It'll definitely bring back some nostalgic moments though. So keep up to date with it. I'll let you guys know of any big definite news that we know of for the classic update, because there's a chance I might check it out. So we'll see. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found the information useful. If you did, please make sure to subscribe and leave a thumbs up, as it would definitely help the channel to grow. And until then, we'll see y'all next time.